I'm 17. Still in school. I live with my dad most of the time, but on weekends I usually visit my mom. She remarried a few years ago to a man I never really had a strong bond with. Let's call him Steve. He's 39. I used to think he was just one of those quiet, awkward adults. Nothing more than that. He always kept to himself. Didn't talk too much unless my mom was around. Looking back now, I think he was waiting for the right moment. And I hate that I didn't see it sooner. It all started a few weekends ago. I was staying over at my mom's house like I usually do. We had dinner together, watched a movie, just a normal Saturday evening. My mom seemed really tired that day. She'd been up late the night before because of work, so after the movie ended, she said goodnight and went to bed early. That left just me and Steve in the living room. It was quiet. The TV was still on, but neither of us was really watching. I was scrolling through my phone, kind of bored. And then I felt it. His hand. It was just a light touch at first, on my leg. I didn't think too much of it right away. He'd done that once before the previous weekend, and even though I felt weird about it then, I convinced myself it was just a harmless pat. Maybe just one of those awkward dad gestures. I tried not to overthink it. But this time, the way his hand lingered felt different. It wasn't a quick pat. It wasn't brief. It was slow. Gentle. Too familiar. I felt my stomach tighten. I glanced over at him. He was watching the TV like nothing was happening. I remember freezing for a second, not even knowing what to say. I quietly shifted in my seat, hoping he'd take the hint. I gently nudged his hand away, trying to play it off like I was just adjusting myself. I didn't want to start something, didn't want to accuse him if I was wrong. But I wasn't wrong. Not even 5 minutes later, I felt his hand again. This time a bit higher. I flinched. "Stop," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't want to sound scared, even though I was. He didn't respond. He just smiled, this awkward, weird, creepy smile that made my skin crawl. He didn't say a word, but he looked at me like I knew what he wanted. My heart started racing. I wanted to get up, leave the room, scream, something. But I felt frozen in place. I hate that. I hate how fear can lock your body in place like that. How your brain screams move, but your body just can't. Finally, I stood up quickly and said I was going to pet the dog. That was the first excuse I could come up with. I walked across the room and crouched down next to our Staffordshire Bull Terrier, rubbing her fur even though she was half asleep. I just needed space. I needed him to stop. And then he said it. "Why are you acting weird?" he asked, like nothing was happening. "You know what I want to do." That sentence felt like a punch in the chest. I didn't respond. I just stood up and walked to the bathroom, closing the door behind me and locking it quickly. My hands were shaking. My throat felt tight. I sat on the closed toilet lid and took out my phone. That's when I called my dad. I tried to whisper, not wanting Steve to hear me. I told my dad I needed him to pick me up right away. I didn't go into all the details, but I told him that Steve made me feel unsafe and something really wrong had happened. My dad didn't ask questions. He just said, "I'm on my way." I stayed in the bathroom for a long time. I didn't cry yet, not until I was in the car. At that moment, I just felt numb. I didn't want to leave the bathroom, but I also knew Steve wouldn't do anything while my mom was awake or around. Eventually, I walked out like nothing had happened. My mom had come downstairs by then, half asleep, asking if everything was okay. I nodded. Steve was back in his spot on the couch, acting completely normal. As if he hadn't just crossed a serious line. When my dad pulled up outside, I grabbed my bag and said I needed to go home early. My mom looked confused but didn't ask too many questions. I think she just thought I was being a moody teenager. The moment I got in the car, I broke down. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I cried the whole way home. My dad kept one hand on the wheel and the other on my shoulder. He didn't say much, just kept telling me I was safe now. For the next 2 days, I stayed at my dad's place. I barely ate. I barely slept. I kept replaying everything over and over in my head. That voice in my mind kept whispering things like, "Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe it wasn't that bad. What if no one believes you?" But deep down, I knew the truth. I knew exactly what Steve was trying to do. And I also knew I had to tell my mom. She deserved to know the kind of man she was living with. But how do you tell your own mother that the man she loves, the man she trusts, made her daughter feel unsafe? I kept putting it off. I wanted to calm down first. I wanted to find the right words. But I also knew I couldn't stay silent forever. I couldn't let fear make decisions for me. My dad told me if I didn't tell her soon, he would. Not in a threatening way, just in a "this is serious and it can't be hidden" kind of way. I understood. He was right. So I made a decision. Instead of talking to my mom face to face, I recorded a video of myself explaining everything. I thought maybe if I could talk through it, if she could see the look on my face and hear the fear in my voice, it would hit harder than just words in a text or phone call. It took me a few tries. I kept choking up. I kept deleting and restarting. But eventually, I sent the video. And then I waited. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. She'd watched the video. Her message was short. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I'm leaving him." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't know whether to cry again or feel relieved. That night, she packed a bag and told Steve it was over. She called him her ex-husband for the first time, and in that moment, I knew she believed me. Even though she was heartbroken, and I could hear it in her voice, she believed me. Later that night, I got a message from Steve. "Thanks. Now I have no one." I stared at those words with a mixture of disgust and confusion. Part of me almost felt guilty, for a second. But then I remembered what he did. What he said. What he tried to do. And that guilt turned into anger. He shouldn't have anyone. Not after that. After I got that message from Steve, "Thanks. Now I have no one." I felt this strange mix of emotions I didn't even know how to process. Part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room. Another part of me wanted to scream. And, weirdly, part of me felt sorry for him. Even though I hated myself for it. It's messed up, right? Feeling sympathy for someone who scared you, someone who crossed the line in the worst way? But that's what people like him do. They twist your emotions. They make you question what's right and what's wrong. They make you feel responsible for their downfall. And that's exactly what he was trying to do. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked his number and turned off my phone for the rest of the night. I needed peace. I needed quiet. I needed my thoughts to stop racing. The next morning, my mom called. Her voice was tired, shaky. I could tell she hadn't slept either. But she didn't try to pretend everything was okay. She thanked me, not in a casual way, but in this raw, painful, mother-to-daughter kind of way. She said, "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I should have known something was off." I told her it wasn't her fault. Because it wasn't. Steve was good at hiding. At pretending. At wearing a face that looked like someone trustworthy. That's what makes these kinds of people so dangerous, they know how to blend in. And then she told me something that made my stomach turn all over again. She said she was going to the police. I didn't expect that, to be honest. I thought maybe she'd just cut him off, block him, move on, try to forget it ever happened. But no. She was serious. She said, "He can't get away with this. Not with what he did to you. Not with what he tried to do. And if he's done this once, he could do it again to someone else." That was the moment I realized how strong my mom really is. Later that day, she filed a report with the police. I gave a statement, too. I sat down with an officer, a woman, thank God, and told her everything. From the first time I felt uncomfortable around him to what happened that night in the living room. She listened carefully, asked questions gently, and told me I did the right thing. I thought giving the statement would be the hardest part. But it wasn't. The hardest part was waiting. Waiting to hear what would happen next. Waiting to find out if the police would actually do something. Waiting to know if I could breathe again without looking over my shoulder. And then, a few days later, we got the call. Steve had been arrested. They held him in custody for questioning. According to the police, there were other concerns being investigated. Apparently, there was another case involving him, something about coercive control and emotional manipulation. My mind raced with questions I didn't want to ask. Had he done this to someone else? Someone even younger than me? But I didn't need the details. I already knew what kind of person he was. When I told my dad, he looked relieved but still angry. He kept saying, if I'd known sooner. I swear I'd have dealt with him myself. I'm grateful he didn't. Because honestly, I wanted Steve to face justice the right way. I didn't want to carry more trauma. I didn't want this to turn into a revenge story. I just wanted him to be gone. But just when I thought it was finally over, it wasn't. He was released on bail. That Monday morning, I got a call from my mom. She sounded panicked. He showed up, she said, breathless. He came to the house. My heart sank. He wasn't supposed to contact us. That was part of the bail conditions. No communication. No visits. He was supposed to stay away from both of us for at least 3 months. But Steve didn't care about rules. He never did. According to my mom, he showed up out of nowhere, begging her to take him back. Crying, yelling, saying he had no one now. Then, as if that wasn't enough, he grabbed her phone. Just took it from her like it belonged to him. She tried to get it back, but he left before she could call for help. The police were contacted immediately. And here's where it got even stranger. A few hours later, Steve crashed his bike. No, I'm not joking. After storming out of the house like a maniac, he apparently rode his bicycle straight into a fence, or a wall, I'm not sure which, and ended up in the hospital. We don't know if he got seriously hurt. The police haven't told us everything yet. All we know is that he broke his bail conditions within hours and now they're deciding what to do next. Meanwhile, my mom has installed a panic alarm in the house, one of those systems that alerts the police immediately if she presses it. She's scared. I'm scared. But we're prepared now. And that's more than I could say before. There's one more thing I haven't told you yet, something that's been stuck in my head ever since. When the police were questioning Steve, he apparently said something truly disturbing. A sick attempt to defend what he did. He said, "At least I didn't do what any other man would have done. Any man would have taken it further." Let that sink in. He actually tried to justify himself. Tried to make himself seem like the lesser evil in some twisted fantasy. And that's when I stopped feeling sorry for him completely. After the bike crash and a surprise visit to my mom's house, despite being legally told to stay away, things spiraled quickly. That same night, the police came by again. My mom told them everything, how he showed up uninvited, took her phone, and ran off like some desperate ghost of his former self. I think they were more surprised by how quickly he'd violated his bail than anything else. They'd given him 3 months to stay away. He didn't even last 3 days. Apparently, when he crashed his bike, it wasn't some little accident either. He was going fast, too fast. Maybe he was angry. Maybe he wasn't thinking straight. Maybe he was hoping to scare us by showing how broken he was. Well, it didn't work. He scraped up most of his face, broke a few ribs, and dislocated his shoulder. When the officers arrived at the hospital to question him again, he had the nerve to act like he was the victim. He said things like, "I didn't know where else to go, and I was just trying to talk." But let's be clear, you don't get to just talk to someone after you make them feel unsafe, after you cross boundaries and get police involved. You don't get to flip the script. And even if you're hurt, that doesn't erase what you did. The officers filed a formal report for violating bail conditions. They couldn't keep him locked up immediately, not until a hearing, but they added new restrictions. Tighter ones. More frequent check-ins. More severe consequences if he came near us again. Still, it didn't bring peace. Because that night, my mom couldn't sleep. Neither could I. We weren't afraid he'd hurt us physically, not exactly. But it's hard to describe the fear that comes from knowing someone who made you feel small, powerless, and confused is still walking around somewhere, thinking you ruined his life. The next few days were quiet. Almost too quiet. I stopped going to school for a bit. I couldn't focus. Couldn't be around crowds. I didn't want to answer questions like, "Why haven't you been in class?" or "Are you okay?" Because what do you even say? "Oh, my stepdad tried to cross a line no man ever should and now he's out there somewhere pretending he's the one who got hurt." No thanks. So I stayed home. I took walks with my dad. Watched comfort movies. Ate too many instant noodles. I tried to pretend life was normal again, but it wasn't. Every little noise made me jump. Every unexpected knock at the door sent my heart racing. And then there was my mum. She tried to be strong for me, and in many ways, she was. But I'd catch her staring out the window for too long, or folding laundry with tears in her eyes. I think it broke something inside her, too. Not just because of what Steve did, but because she'd let someone like him into our lives. She trusted him. Believed in him. Built a life around him. And he shattered all of it in a single moment of disgusting selfishness. Then, one afternoon, we got another call from the police. This time, it wasn't just about bail conditions. Steve was officially being charged. The officers told my mom that based on my testimony, his previous history, and his behavior since the arrest, the court was moving forward with multiple charges, including inappropriate conduct, coercive control, and harassment. They couldn't promise a conviction yet, that would come down to court, but they were building a strong case. My mom cried again. But this time, it wasn't out of fear. It was relief. Finally, it felt like someone was taking this seriously. That someone in authority was saying, "You're not crazy. This man is dangerous. And we believe you." That changed everything. About a week later, my mom had to go to the courthouse to give a full statement. I didn't have to testify right away, that would only happen if the case went to trial, but I was ready if they needed me. And during that time, something incredible happened. Our dog, the same Staffy I'd gone to pet during that awful night, wouldn't leave my side. She followed me room to room. Slept at my door. Whined when I closed it. Animals know, don't they? When something's wrong. When you're hurting. And even though Steve used to ignore her, barely even looked at her, really, he told the police he wanted custody of the dog. Yeah. You read that right. The same man who wouldn't walk her, feed her, or even talk to her suddenly wanted to keep her. Maybe he thought it was a way to stay connected to us. Or to control something. Or maybe he just wanted to win something after losing everything. Either way, the answer was simple, no. He wasn't getting her. Or me. Or my mom. Or any part of our lives, ever again. It's been a few weeks since then. Steve hasn't shown up again, probably because of the panic alarm installed in the house and the fact that the police are watching him now. My mom and I still get updates from the authorities. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're not in the dark anymore either. I've started going back to school, bit by bit. Seeing my friends. Talking more. Laughing again. My dad checks in with me every day, even if it's just a silly meme or "Are you okay?" text. Things aren't perfect. But they're better. And maybe that's all I can ask for right now. There's one last thing I want to say, to anyone listening, reading, or maybe going through something similar. Trust your gut. If someone makes you uncomfortable, even if they're family, even if they act nice, even if they say it's just a joke, you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to speak up. You're allowed to protect yourself. And if you're not believed at first, say it louder. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be heard. And you are never the one to blame for someone else's disgusting behavior.